have a lovely crew here that Angel Christina brought with her, and we have people, including our professor here online. And we're absolutely delighted that we can hear something about we haven't heard before, that is the Maltese language, I would say, yeah. And I did announce that broadly because, I mean, normally people would think Malta is the only last place where English is the first official language here in Europe, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And forgetting fully about the vernacular, so to say. So we're absolutely delighted. I can't say too much about our presenter because I don't know her well enough.
Not yet.
But she is a self-made woman, I'd say.
Oh, that's nice.
And the rest can come from her. So enjoy, and as always, you know, question may be posed after the presentation, also from cyberspace. We record it, and in the end we decide whether we want to upload it on our website.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you everyone. Thank you, Professor Rasmus, for having me here. Thank you everyone online from Canada, from Malta, and from the rest of the world. And thank you for joining. Thank you all. I'm going to say something, and I want you to think, does this ring any bells? Does it sound like something you've heard before? Insellmilkom, jiena Angel Christina minn Malta, għandi 44 sena u ilni ngħix il-Ġermanja kważi 6 snin. That is Maltese for hi, my name is Angel, I'm 44, I'm from Malta. I've been living in Germany for nearly 6 years. So I'm going to now say it again, and just in case you pick something from what I said in Maltese that rings similar to something you know, you're like, okay, so this is Maltese. So a very, very light introduction to the Maltese language. Insellmilkom, jiena Angel Christina. Min Malta, għandi 44 sena u ilni ngħix il-Ġermanja għal kważi 6 snin. There you have it. So that was a hello. I'm going to leave just the word hello, insellmilkom. Of course, we can also say hello. But when you see the word insellmilkom, maybe you already start thinking where Maltese could be coming from. Insellem, maybe, perhaps. But let me introduce you to our diamond in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. Malta, id-diamant f'nofs il-Mediterran. I'm not going to do that all the time, don't worry. That is my Malta. It is this beautiful island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, around so many other places. And you will think, why is she showing us this picture? Well, first of all, to locate Malta on the map, because you will be surprised how many people have asked me, is Malta in Spain? No. Malta is our own island. We are a republic. It's separate. We don't speak Spanish. I mean, some people do, but not as our language. So I wanted to just, people perhaps have it in their mind where we are. We're very, very tiny, underneath Italy, underneath Sicily. Okay? So let's start with some Maltese facts. So this is a closer look at the map of Malta, and underlined in red is the capital city of Valletta. Malta is actually made of 5 islands. I don't think many of us knew that, right? I did, of course. There's the main island. This is Malta. It looks like a fish, right? There's the island of Gozo, the bigger island. Both Gozo and Malta are inhabited. Then we have Comino, right in between, tiny Kemonet, and tiny Filfla. Those are the 5 islands that form the Maltese Islands or the Maltese archipelago. Of course, we are a Mediterranean island, and we do have the Mediterranean climate. Best times to go to Malta, in my honest opinion, spring or autumn. If you love the heat, go in summer because it will be scorching. It will reach high 30s, sometimes even 40s, with a high humidity. Cold. There are sunny days in winter. However, because of the humidity, We say you feel it in your bones. It's a very, very cold, humid. So 4 degrees would be a low, but also it's quite cold. We do have 2 official languages. So of course today I'm speaking about Maltese, but I speak English since I was in kindergarten. We learned the alphabet in English and in Maltese. We actually learned math, geography. History was only in Malta, in Maltese, but the rest of the subjects are actually taught in English in Malta. I know it's surprising. But officially we have both Maltese and English. We are officially a Roman Catholic island. About 2/3 of the Maltese are still practicing Roman Catholic, and others are now obviously different varieties, but I was born and raised Catholic. We have a population of under 600,000. Yes, we're quite small, aren't we? But we are a dense island, so there are many, many people, little space, and unfortunately not too many green spaces. But of course, you can imagine the beauty of our beaches. And another Maltese fact is our currency. We do use the euro. Since 2004, we joined the European Union, and then the euro came to Malta in 2008. In those 4 years, we were working out from the Maltese lira, so we actually had a currency like in Italy, and then we phased in the euro in 2008. We started the euro only. Okay. So, how is the Maltese language shaped? By whom? Do you remember that picture, Malta in the middle and all those lands? Imagine stormy seas. Imagine in the olden times, people needing to cross from A to B, but they need to stop somewhere for anything really. Food, shelter, sleep, refueling, whatever they needed at the time. Malta was their diamond. Malta was their best place because it's right there in the middle. So let's see who came first. First, we had the Arabic influence. Thus, our Maltese language is completely influenced by Semitic. There is a grammatical core. At its core, the Maltese language is mostly Arabic. Do you remember Insel Milkom? Yes, exactly. Those assimilations. It also does sound like a particular dialect in a certain area of Tunisia. I find this very fascinating. I was sent a video once and they told me, are they speaking Maltese? I said, no, but I can actually understand a little bit. I found that quite nice. And of course, it has a lot of heavy influences from our neighbors, Sicily and Italy, and then of course, more recently, English. So the Arab settlers were on the Maltese islands between the 9th and 11th century. We then had the Christian reconquest and Sicilian influence, which of course, after the 13th century, they brought the Italian, Latin, Romance words. And then the Knights of St. John, between those dates there, they of course started bringing French, Spanish. In fact, the capital city, La Valette, is actually the Grand Master La Valette during the Knights of St. John. And of course, we were, I was going to say unfortunately, but let's not take sides. We were a British colony for a number of years. And there is a lot of influence of England. The education system is very British. And we also drive on the left. So that is a bit of a history, in short, which heavily influences the language. Maltese is made up of all of this. It's not just one straight line. I think none of us Maltese are one straight line. We're all a mishmash of many different things. And in my opinion, that's what makes it beautiful. Have you ever wondered why the Maltese language is written in a Latin script? It actually is. The only one, I am proud to say. Because of all that I just said with regards to the history, it actually helped Maltese be written in Latin. So the religious influence, leaning more towards the Catholic and the Christian influence and far away from the Arab influence, we have then leaned more into using the Latin script. There was, of course, the European political influence with all these people who have come to the island and left their mark also on the language because they had a language in the Latin script. Of course, then the English, it was more practical for writing, and the vocabulary, of course, it becoming more Latinized. And finally, and of course, not the least, with the standardization of the alphabet in the 1920s, it adopted and then became Latin script officially. However, it still has some Maltese characters which kept the Semitic sounds. And I'm very excited to share them in the next slide. And as I just said, I will reiterate that Maltese is the one and only language that is officially and exclusively written in the Latin script. How fabulous. Okay. Now I get into my element of having been a teacher. This is very great for me to see and maybe very interesting for you to observe. These are our Maltese characters or sounds that are kept from the Semitic that are sounding from what we had to what we have and in between. Anyway, this is what it is. I'll just go through the sounds first and then I'll get into the words in a second. So here we have a ch. It's very easy for Germans to say ch, right? Because you have your own ch written completely different. So it's a ch sound. It's a forward sound. Here we have the j. We do also have a g without a dot. C without a dot doesn't exist, but we do have a g without a dot. I'm not going to bring the sound of that so that I don't confuse you, but this is also a forward j. Here we come to one of my favorite Maltese sounds. Dig deep in here and try to say h. It's a h, right? So it's similar a little bit to the German R, I know. So it's very guttural and you dig in there. Of course, we don't need to h all the time. I can say h as well, but it's a sound that we adapted to and I can do it easily. Most foreigners, when they come to Malta and try to speak Maltese, they find it a bit challenging. I find this quite nice. And then we have our z. Z. So they're all strong sounds. The z is also in the front. We do have a z without a dot. Again, I'm not going to bring it up right now, not to confuse you, but these have kept the Arabic elements. Ch, j, h, and z. We also do have these two lovely pairs here. This is called an ein. So the G and H with a line together have a name called an ein, which in Maltese actually means I, ein. And this is an ie, ie. These two lengthen the sound. They make it longer. So if you have an ein in a word, for example, your job, this is in the middle, and there is no sound of it, you can't hear it. Think of the GH in English, like enough. For enough at the end, it's enough, maybe through, or one of those. But the GH makes it longer and is not audible. The EE makes it also longer. Like when I presented myself, I said, Jena, Jisimni, Jena. Jena has the EE in the middle. So Jena, not Jena, but Jena. That's an EE. We'll see them in a second. Let me give you some playful ways of how we use our words, our alphabet, and our special characters in Maltese. The first line, I found all words that are actually Semitic based. So, churket is the first word, and it means ring. Churket. Maybe it sounds like something else that you've heard. Churket. Jugarel. Can you see? There's the g, jug. Oops. Got a preview. Jugarel. Jugarel means toy. And the j here, g is the other one. Jugarel. Halib. Halib means milk. Halib. And zebuja means olive. Zebuja. So those are all Semitic-based Maltese words. Let's now jump to other influences in the language coming from other languages. If perhaps you speak different languages, you might clock some. Chirasa. Chirasa. Cherise, French. Yeah. Giustizia, blatantly stole it. Giustizia, like giustizia in Italian, but spelled differently. Ocht, I find this very nice. Tochter. However, ocht means sister and tochter means daughter. But we stayed in the family. And so that's from German. And zafran, from azafran in Spanish, zafran is saffron. So these are very few Maltese words. We use these in everyday language. However, they're already a beautiful mix. Okay, let me present to you the oldest script that has Maltese in it. This is Il-Kantaliena, a poem, which means lullaby, kind of this, motion, the sing-song motion. And it is from the 15th century. Absolutely amazing. I'm so proud to be sharing this with you. That script that you see there is actually the oldest known literary text in Old Maltese. So if I would be able to read this closely, visibly, I actually can't read it because it's not the Maltese we use anymore. It's an Old Maltese because at the time they still spoke Arabic, which is coming soon. In all that text, there's only one Romance word, one word coming from around, and that's the word ventura, which means luck. It was the elite way of speaking. So, perhaps Shakespeare, you can compare this. That text is not how the people spoke. It's how, the people of the words spoke, let's say it this way. Because, as I already mentioned, at the time, in the late 13th century, they actually still spoke Arabic. And I am proud to say that for this presentation, just a year ago, they actually officially recognized our Kantaliena from the 15th century as a UNESCO Memory of the World Register. So within the year, I was able to use it as content here. How perfect is that? Okay. I would like to now have a quick glance at a very short excerpt of the poem so that you have a look at the development of the language from Old Maltese to today's Maltese. So that is the original orthography. I can't read this. The only thing I can kind of figure out here is kalp, because I had a grandmother who spoke with a certain dialect, and I actually heard that sound before, and I know it means heart. I can't help you with the rest. I'm so sorry. So we can see the development of the language. Here you have the modern orthography. So this I can read. It's not today's Maltese, but you can see how it developed. Alp manda hakem, sultan ulamula, birammi irmitni pturjin mu'sula. So here, just to remind you of the ain, imammi and irmitni. Makes it irmitni, makes it longer. And here we have today's Maltese. Quite similar, if you can see, but of course there are some differences. Alp blahakim sultan ulan as sit, liv birfont ramitni pturjin immermrin. Let's have a closer look. Here I pointed out the Maltese elements that started coming in. So here we had none. Can you see that? So here, most probably this would be the word for hakem. right? It looks similar. The h wasn't there, right? Came later. Sultan, similar. And then imammi, it turned quite a little bit. Rimitne, comes irmitni. I found it very fascinating to share this with you. And then, of course, the modern Maltese with some underlining words. We have the h, the ie here as well, and the j. Ramitni from irmitni. Actually, people in Malta still say irmitni sometimes, which I find very interesting. You also use ramitni. And then fond would be something that wasn't there but was introduced and also has a Latin influence. So that is Maltese. That is the development of a language from just one poem. However, do we speak like this anymore? Not really. There are some scholars, of course, who prefer to be very pure in their Maltese, as most probably happens in other languages. But I don't speak like this all the time. If I have to, when I was on TV, when I was a presenter and I had to stick to Maltese language because or else we get fined, I had to speak clean, clear Maltese, as least influenced by English or any other languages as possible, which was a task. But I succeeded. So, let me show you some variations of the Maltese. Yes. I find this very funny, and I thought I'd share it with you. Such a tiny island, right? So I said under 600,000 people. We have the north versus the south thing. How? I don't know. So the people from the north look down on the people from the south and think they are less, and they are, you know, the not educated ones. Obviously, this is not true, right? This is just a stigma and the thing there's in the culture. And then the other way around, the people from the south, as a whole, not particular people, refer to the people from the north as, in Maltese we say, tal pepe, which means snobbish and like their nose is up and they are all this chic. So even though we are so tiny, we still have this going on, and I thought of sharing it because it's quite funny. We actually have around 14 dialects of this beautiful Maltese language. Mostly these dialects change from the vowels, and I'll show you exactly. So not too many things change, even though sometimes a complete word changes, but little things, little sounds, usually vowels, change, and then you can decipher where from the island the person comes from. Fascinating. I really like that. So in honor of my auntie watching, I'm going to start with the word tea. This means mine. I don't say tea, but I've heard tea very often. Because if you come from the area of the three cities, here I underlined Bormla, but it's Cospicua, it's Senglea as well, you say tea. In Maltese, clean, undialected, you say ti. Ti. So if you're walking around, going for a stroll in Malta, and you hear tea, you're like, oh, okay, they come from the three cities. That's really fantastic. You have like an identity with the word, or an accent. Another word would be, for example, laham. That's the clean Maltese for meat. If you are from the area of Marsa Shlock or Zaytun, you would say lehem. Lehem. So the vowel changes. I didn't really hear this, but there was a phase in my life where I used to hang around Zaytun area and lehem was used and I heard it. Another example would be dar, which means house. And if you are from the area of Marsa Shlock, Zaytun, Asha, you would also hear dur, dur. As I mentioned before, sometimes it's a completely different word. If you come from Gozo and you want to refer to your mattress, I would say sa'u, but they would say mitrach. It's a completely different word, and I really, really like that. There's another word I would like to share with you with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek moment, especially for the Maltese who can understand. For the word comb, we totally stole the Italian word, and it is petne, for pettine. However, there is a Maltese word, which is mosht. I feel very uncomfortable saying that because it sounds like a very rude word in Maltese. And I'll leave it to that with you. If you want to Google it, have fun. So those are some variations of Maltese. There is also, of course, the influence of the Maltese who emigrated between World War and the 80s, the 90s, late 90s, with an Australian now accent, and the Maltese with now a Canadian accent. So here we had around 80,000 Maltese people emigrating to Australia, and around 20,000 Maltese people emigrated to Canada, who both now have a very beautiful Maltese Australian or Maltese Canadian accent, which obviously is one of a kind. You can't find it anywhere else within Malta itself. Okay, let's come to today. This is a headline from a newspaper. I'll just give you a couple of seconds to have a look, to see if you can spot anything that looks familiar. I can nearly hear your eyes going. Okay. Okay. Let's start with the translation before we dig into it. So that means photographic exhibition in Triton Square by internationally renowned photojournalist Reza. Let's break it word by word. And now you can literally see how the history comes out in the language itself still till today. What fun. Wirja fotografica fi Piazza Tritoni mill-fotojournalist ta' fama internazzjonali Reza. I just noticed that when I speak Maltese, I have this sound. I think it comes from being on TV. It's very interesting. So let's break it down. Wirja is a completely Semitic word from Arabic, and it means exhibition. Fotografica is Italian Greek root for the word photographic. Piazza Internazionali, absolutely as they are. Changed some letters there. Piazza has a J. Internazionali we doubled and changed the end, but very similar to the Italian. Also Latin. And then, of course, we have English influence with photojournalist, of course, and fama, fame. So here is a typical, of course I found it purposefully for this, but a typical Maltese sentence used today. This is Maltese. This is not anything else, this is Maltese. Made up of pieces from those people who landed on our land, left their mark, left their footstep, and now it's part of who we are, how we speak. This is something actually very interesting. We call it code switching. We are a bilingual people at the end of the day, so we speak English and Maltese all the time. Do we mesh? Yeah. Illum għandi meeting mal-manager biex niddiskutu l-project. Of course. Meeting, manager, project. Completely English words. This, you can say this today and it's right, it's correct. We do have a word for meeting, manager, project, but we don't really say that. In every day, we go with this. If you have a formal Maltese seminar that you are proud in using your Maltese, of course, yes, we'll dig deeper and we'll make more efforts. But this is how we speak. If we are at the office, if we are anywhere else, this is how we speak. I don't know if you noticed that when I read it in Maltese, I said project with a Maltese intonation. Of course, in English, I say project. There are others who say project, but that's okay. So there is the English from the British colony that actually stayed quite deeply in the language, and this is an example. Take a deep breath before the next slide, because I'm going to give you some other examples which pinch me a little bit. I hope they make you laugh. They're not my favorite words, but they are still part of the Maltese language. Gonna give you a second. The first time I saw the first word, I nearly cried. That's teddy bear. Yes, teddy bear, help. But we don't, we have ors, which is a bear. But for a cuddle toy, we use teddy bear. Of course, computer, I think this word became part of many languages and the concoction of it, whichever way possible in your own languages. And another two examples are these. Exactly. Fridge. Fridge with a double G so that we make sure we close the door. So here is fridge, obviously from fridge or refrigerator, and club for club. So these are just a pinch. There are so many more, but I thought of putting words we still use, and that also made me a little bit, not necessarily blush, but I don't love these words. I prefer typical Semitically based Maltese, but they're in my language, so I have to share them and talk about them. And also they're a little bit funny when I'm in a good mood. Okay, let's now jump to some interesting facts about the Maltese language. Wieħed u design. Wieħed u design. Ein und 90. The first time I realized that the numbers in Maltese read like German, I had like a little party. I was so excited. I don't know why, but it's such a beautiful little connection between Germany and Malta, as I will wear here, and I thought of bringing it to you. So the numbers in Maltese are completely based on Semitic. Wieħed u design, so the number at the back goes first, but I'm speaking to the converted because in Germany you also say ein und 90. What fun. Another interesting fact is this beautiful cave. This is a cave in the north of Malta, very close to the water, as you can see. And this cave carries a lot with it. And I'm very proud to announce that thanks to this cave, we realized that Malta is 8,500 years old. Yes, older than the pyramids. In April last year, together with most of the research of the Il-Kantaliena poem, and also for me to use today, they discovered through this cave that we are actually 1,000 years older than we thought we are. So we thought we are about 7,000, 7,500 years old as Malta, but lo and behold, we are actually 8,500 years old. And here there were settlers. So we used to think that the first people on Malta were farmers, but they were human settlers who used to carve hand-dug boats and go from here, obviously take the water and go for wherever they needed to be to bring whatever they needed to start movement and inhabitation on the Maltese island. This makes me very, very proud to share. I'm very happy that the research was done in time to share it with you because 8,500 years. Of course, I could have gone down the path of showing you the temples because they are gorgeous. If you've never been and you're a history buff and you love these things, please go and look at them. I'm not promoting Malta. Well, I kind of am, but really have a look. But this thing, I haven't seen it yet because I haven't been to Malta since. However, it's absolutely beautiful and I'm very proud to share this. So Malta has a very beautiful, deep, long history. Another interesting fact. Do you remember I said we were Roman Catholic? Malta has about 500 churches and chapels. Wherever you go, you're going to find a church. You're going to find a big dome, you're going to find a little chapel, you're going to find a little niche, you're going to find a Madonna statue, you're going to find a Jesus statue, you're going to find St. Anthony statue. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. You're not going to forget that you should be praying and looking up and praising the Lord. I find this a very fascinating fact because it's such a small island. They're literally everywhere and it's packed. But it was an important thing. Perhaps it was reinforced. I'm not sure. However, it's so beautiful because if you like architecture, these churches, also the small chapels, have very, very beautiful artwork, old stuff. It's really, really nice to see. And another interesting fact related to religion is that Malta is actually mentioned in the Bible. In 60 AD, St. Paul shipwrecked on the island of Malta. Thus came the big necessity and influence to become Roman Catholic, because the guy was there. So you have to follow the miracle, because I'm not going to get into it, but hey, he was there. He stepped here and he was with us. And in fact, it's actually mentioned in the Bible, and I got the quote for you from the Acts of the Apostles, where they say, and when they were escaped, they knew that the island was called Melita. And at the time, Malta in Greek was called Melita, which also means honey. Sweet. One more interesting fact, because we are in Leipzig at the end of the day. Malta is the size of Leipzig. The whole island fits into Leipzig like this. Fascinating. So I upgraded from being in a whole island to being in a city. Yes. Just some numbers to help you visualize that. Malta, less than 600,000 people, with an area of around 300 kilometers squared. Leipzig, a little bit over 600,000 people, with an area with a little bit less than 300 kilometers squared. Proud Leipziger, of course, but I find this very, very cute. Okay, little bit of practice, little bit of interaction, if you may, and if you want to. Let's try some Maltese. How do we say good morning in Maltese? We say bonjour. Bonjour. So if you're there, bonjour. Obviously, you can hear it comes from Italian, buongiorno, but we cut it short and we say bonjour. I could have put good afternoon, but that's il-wara nofsinhar it-tajjeb. Let's calm down. I didn't want to overwhelm you. Let's go with bonjour. Grazie is for thank you. Again, grazie, but it's grazie in Maltese, and it's thank you. Bonjour, grazie. Perfect. Tricky one for please. Let's go slowly. Yek. Yek, that's okay. Now, hold your horses. Let's go halfway. Do you remember the long sound of the ein, of the GH? The ein? So let's go till here. It's yo. It's like a double O. Yo. J. Yo. J. Okay. Oh, look again. What fun. Yojb. Yojb. That's tricky. Yojbok. Yojbok. Yek Yojbok. This is just to say please. You ran a marathon. Yes? Yek Yojbok is the fast way. If you're learning, you can go slowly. Yek Yojbok. Yek Yojbok. Okay, let's try them one more time. Bonjour. Bonjour. Grazie. Grazie. Yek Yojbok. Yek Yojbok. 10 points. Fantastic. Okay, now you're going to try to guess what these are. Maybe not. Yes. Kifinti. So you meet someone and you say, Kifinti. How are you? Yes. How fantastic is that? Okay. How are you? Perfect. Shismek. You meet someone. Do you remember I said, Jiena jisimni Angel? That's a hint. What's your name? Correct. Oh, you're so with me. What's your name? Shismek. It's very short, right? Many languages have more than one word. It's like sh, which is what? Just the sh is what? Yismek is your name, which is ism, jumbled up, and the ek is the personal. So yisimni, yismek. So the end changes depending on the pronoun. We don't go into the whole fun that we have in the German language. It's this. It's just this little thing. And that's what's your name. And one more for fun. Where? I was hoping you don't say, do you have a? Where is the toilet? Yes, we actually would say toilet in the sentence. Where is the toilet? I think it's somewhere there on the right. Where is the toilet? So that's a big summary of the Maltese language. Grazie, as you all learned. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really touched and very proud to be talking about Malta. I have looked for Maltese people in Leipzig, didn't find many at all. So I am a proud Malteser running around. So for me to be giving this speech and representing our country and sharing about the language makes me very, very proud. Thank you for everyone who came here. Thank you for all the people who are online, who woke up early or carved from their schedule. And now I will finish with sharing with you or teaching you how to say, do you have any questions? And kom xi mistoqsijiet. And kom xi mistoqsijiet. Grazzi ħafna. Thank you very, very much.